So this is a story involving the Taliban and climate change, which I will have to read on my phone because of stupid goddamn paywalls. Um, this is from the Washington Post. Taliban tries reconciling science and religion in facing climate change. When Afghanistan's Taliban rulers headed to the country's first international climate change conference earlier this year in the eastern city of Jalal- Jalalabad, few foreign guests turned up. Afghanistan remains a global pariah in large part because of the Taliban's restrictions on female education, and that isolation has deprived the country of foreign funding for urgently needed measures to adapt to climate change. So, for now, the Afghan government is largely confronting the impact of global warming on its own and putting the blame for floods and sluggish government aid on foreigners. Some former Taliban commanders view global carbon emissions as a new invisible evil. Just like they invaded our country, they've invaded our climate. Lutfullah Khairkhah, the Taliban deputy higher education minister, said in his opening speech at the Jalalabad conference this year. We must defend our climate, our water, our soil to the same extent we defend ourselves against invasion. With parched deserts and deforested flood-prone valleys, Afghanistan is deemed by researchers to be among 10 countries most vulnerable to climate change. Hundreds of people died, for instance, during the recent flood that officials blamed on ominous changes in the climate. Connie Wignaraja, the foreign director of Asia and the Pacific at the United Nations Development Program, said prolonged drought in Afghanistan has so hardened soil that flash floods are particularly violent here. The damage is huge, she said in an interview. Before the Taliban takeover, international donors estimated that Afghanistan would need more than $20 billion between 2020 and 2023 to respond to climate change. The UN is still able to fund some projects in the country, but Wignaraja says the Taliban-run government is correct when it says that global money for climate has dried up. While Taliban's beliefs are rooted in centuries-old Pashtun culture and an extreme interpretation of Islam, the government affirmed that climate change is real, that it's destroying God's work, and that those in the world who reject the truth of climate change need to get on board. The Taliban has asked imams in Afghanistan's tens of thousands of mosques, to emphasize during Friday's prayers the need for environmental protection. Religious scholars are now debating how to reconcile modern science with centuries-old religious beliefs. So I guess I wanted to talk about that story mainly, well, a couple things. I guess first of it, the first point would be to emphasize, climate change. We have to fight climate change on a global front. Obviously, we need to pass legislation in our own individual countries, but really, various countries need to come together to combat climate change. It can't just be, one or half a dozen countries combating climate change while no one else does anything. And also, we can't necessarily allow the poorer countries to have to bear total responsibility for it. We can invest in cleaner energy for poorer countries, but those aren't the prime suspects here. The people who really need to be fighting climate change are the big Western powers, UK, US, China, and so forth. Well, China's not a Western power, but you get my point. The big countries that are already industrialized and already contributing significantly to greenhouse emissions, those are the countries that need to be the most stringent with their policies. The other thing, too, is just it's somewhat frustrating that the Taliban, of all groups, doesn't deny climate change. But we have top politicians and, top talking heads, pundits, and public intellectuals and so forth in the U.S. who deny climate change or deny that, there's anything we can do about it or anything we should do about it. Right? The Taliban has a better opinion than some of these people. That's insane to me. The article did mention that, Afghanistan is one of the top 10 most affected countries in regards to climate change. So there's obviously just a pragmatic material, or there's a pragmatic reason for the Taliban's concern. Their material conditions sort of warrant being deeply concerned about it. So, this isn't necessarily me like saying like, oh, the Taliban are such great people. They're not. But why are they right on this issue and there are U.S. politicians that still deny it to this day? Why? This feels like an SNL skit. This feels like an SNL skit that even the Taliban agrees climate change is a problem. And Republican politicians are like, nah, fam, not a problem. Greenhouse gases all the way. Like, I don't want to like praise the Taliban for an opinion. They're a terrible organization. But, facts are facts. Like, they are correct on this issue. And most Republican politicians are not. It is orthodoxy in the Republican Party to deny climate change. So, like, everything is backwards. Everything is backwards. The world doesn't make any sense. Reality doesn't make any sense. It's an embarrassment that there are mainstream American politicians that still deny climate change, when even the Taliban at this point has said, yeah, no, climate change is a problem. We have to do something about it. Again, this just, it upsets me. It upsets me so much. So yeah, Taliban surprisingly right about climate change somehow. And, but also let this be a reminder that we need to fight climate change on a global front. So all the nations need to come together to fight climate change. We can't just do it one by one. That's just not enough. That's not going to get us where we need to be.